Viewer, if you're feeling it, I'm feeling it too. Look at that picture in my background. I thought we'd seen the last of it. Unfortunately, thanks once again to the country that gave us the coronavirus pandemic, we are having to switch our spotlights onto the COVID pandemic once again. You and I, viewer, had hoped that we'd never need to wear a mask again, perhaps, that we didn't have to think of the prospect of banned flights and curtailed international travel, that we didn't have to think of lockdowns and restrictions on our daily lives, but that is the reality. And I'm here to tell you today that the sooner we face that reality and at least prepare in a practical fashion, no need to exaggerate the threat, but important to look it in the eye and realize and remind ourselves that China is a country with which every other country in the world currently has zero trust, especially us here in India. And that's the reason why we cannot believe anything that China is officially saying, especially when pictures tell exactly the opposite story that the Communist Party in China is currently claiming. They're claiming it's not that bad, but the pictures and information coming out from whistleblowers and images suggests it's a nightmare situation. Remember, there are estimates that 1 million Chinese citizens could lose their lives to COVID in the next few months. And this is thanks wholly to China's bungled COVID control policy. Here in India, the most immediate question to us, to civil society, to citizens is, should we protect ourselves? And is the first move in that kind of thing banning all flights to and from China as quickly as possible? Watch this report.
China's worst COVID nightmare once again threatens the world. A runaway rise in infections with over 1 million deaths predicted this year. Here in India, even as the government goes into a huddle to plan ahead for any possible impact, one of the first demands going up is for an immediate flight ban with China.
इस परिस्थिति में मैंने ये मांग की है कि सबसे पहले हमको चीन से जो हवाई जहाज आ रहे हैं या चीन जा रहे हैं उनके ऊपर रोक लगानी चाहिए.
India currently has no direct flights with China, but several flights with stopovers in Hong Kong and countries like Singapore, South Korea and Vietnam. For the moment, there's no change in China-specific flight guidelines.
There is no decision with regard to any change in the aviation guidelines as of now.
Traditional direct flights between the big cities of both countries have been off the table since the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. And while they've always been unlikely to resume anytime soon, China's knee-jerk cancellation of flight routes when even a single passenger tests positive, now the possibility of a total Indian ban could be looming. Before the current Chinese COVID crisis exploded, India and China had been in discussions to resume at least limited direct flights. But that seems a very far cry now. According to a survey done by community social media poster Local Circle, 87% of Indians surveyed want a total shutdown of all flights, including non-direct flights between India and China. 71% want mandatory quarantine for all passengers who've been to China in the last 2 weeks. Given what India faced thanks to inbound passengers from China in the early days of the pandemic, the nervousness is writ large in large sections of the public wanting blanket bans on flights. The question is, could things reach a pass where the government changes its mind and stops all flights to and